For the last few years, we've all thought about COVID-19 in a pretty specific way. You get sick, you get better, and that's the end of it, right? Well, it turns out the data is painting a much, much scarier picture. So let's get right into it.
It really makes you stop and think. What if the cough, the fever, all the stuff we associate with the initial infection, what if that's not the real danger? What if the biggest threat is actually a silent attack that keeps going long after you think you've recovered? So in this explainer, we're going to unpack this new reality. We'll look at this hidden pandemic of chronic illness, we'll dive into the cellular hijacking that's causing it, and then we'll see why our current strategies just aren't cutting it. But then we'll get to a revolutionary new solution and what it means for our future. All right, let's start with the big picture here. It's time we stop thinking about COVID-19 as just another lung infection, because it's becoming crystal clear that this thing is a powerful engine for creating chronic disease, and we're just now starting to grasp how big this problem really is. All over the world, doctors are seeing something deeply troubling. There's this huge spike in young, otherwise healthy people getting diagnosed with diseases you just wouldn't expect. Really aggressive cancers, dementia at an early age, major heart problems. This isn't just a coincidence. It points to some massive event that's impacted pretty much everyone on the planet. And this isn't just a hunch. We've got the hard data to back it up. Check this out. One massive study found that if you've had a SARS-CoV-2 infection, your risk for HPV-related cancers goes way up. I mean, a 67% higher risk for cervical cancer and a jaw-dropping 131% for vaginal cancer. What this tells us is that the virus is basically rolling out the red carpet for other serious diseases to move in. So you have to be asking, how on earth is this happening? To understand that, we need to zoom way in, from our whole body down to the microscopic level. See, the virus isn't just a temporary guest. It's waging a quiet but devastating war inside our cells. And the main battlefield are mitochondria. Now just think of these as the tiny little power plants inside every single cell in your body. They are the engines that produce all the energy you need to live and breathe. They're absolutely essential. And this slide just shows you exactly what the virus does to them. On the left, you've got a healthy, happy mitochondrion, working perfectly. On the right, that's what scientists are finding in patients who've had COVID. They're damaged, they're ruptured. The virus literally hijacks these power plants, stealing their energy to make copies of itself. And that leaves our cells starved for energy, stressed out, and completely dysfunctional. So here's how this cellular siege goes down. First, the virus grabs the mitochondria to use for fuel. That sets off this really bad chain reaction that shuts down something called autophagy, which is basically the cell's cleanup crew. The team that takes out the trash and recycles old parts. So without that cleanup crew, all this cellular junk just piles up, and that leads to the massive chronic inflammation that's driving all these diseases. Okay, so if the problem is this deep, this cellular, what are we doing about it? Well, here's the hard truth. Our entire medical playbook, everything we have right now, it just wasn't designed for this kind of persistent, long-term threat. Let's just quickly break down our main strategies. Vaccines, they're amazing at preventing you from getting critically ill. But we all know that protection fades, and they have a tough time keeping up with new variants. Monoclonal antibodies, super expensive, and a tiny mutation in the virus can make them totally useless. And antivirals, they're only for that first week of infection, not for a virus that decides to stick around for months or even years. And this gets us right to the heart of the problem. We're stuck in this horrible cycle. We get infected, we get reinfected, and every single time that underlying cellular damage can get a little bit worse. And not a single tool we have right now offers the kind of continuous, day-in, day-out protection we need to finally break that cycle. But what if there was a completely different way to think about this? A way to build a permanent shield against this virus and all its future cousins, using something found in nature itself. This is where the story takes a turn, from the problem to a truly revolutionary solution. For years, we've been focused on antibodies. Think of an antibody like a very specific key, designed for one and only one lock, the protein on the virus. The problem is, the virus keeps changing the lock. But lectins are like a master key. They don't go after the proteins that change all the time. Instead, they target the stable sugar structures on the virus's surface, the part of the lock that almost never changes. And here's the absolute genius part. Using cutting-edge AI, scientists have found a whole new class of these super powerful lectins. And guess where they come from? Foods that are already recognized as completely safe, things we might eat every day.
So this is the moonshot idea, and it's actually a pretty elegant three-step plan. Step 1, done. The AI has already found the right lectins. Step 2, this is the big one. We genetically engineer our staple crops, the corn, the wheat, the rice that the whole world relies on to actually produce these lectins. And step 3, that's the payoff. By just eating these foods every day, we build up a continuous low-level defense system inside our bodies, ready to neutralize the virus on sight.
What's so incredible about this approach is that it does two things at once. It acts as a preventative shield, potentially stopping the next pandemic before it can even start, but it's also a potential functional cure for people who are already struggling with long COVID by constantly tamping down any viral activity. And because it targets those unchanging sugar structures, the same tech could work on other nasty viruses that mutate all the time, like the flu, bird flu, even HIV.
So this is way more than just a clever piece of science. This is a blueprint for a safer, healthier world. But to make it happen, it's going to take a global vision and a real commitment to thinking big.
The cost of doing nothing is, well, it's almost unthinkable. The global economic hit from long COVID alone is already estimated to be over $3 trillion. Trillion. And that number is just going up. We simply cannot afford to let this hidden crisis continue.
And this isn't science fiction. The people behind this idea are making it very clear. The tech is there. The proof of concept is solid. The roadmap is laid out. The only thing we're missing is the global willpower to actually do it.
That's why there's a call for a massive global effort. The proponents of this idea are actively looking for partners to make this a reality, and they've specifically pointed to China as a key partner who might have the foresight and the resources needed for a mission this important.
The message is basically that the time for small, incremental changes is over. It's a call for bold, decisive action from governments, from investors, from everyone to finally build a future that's pandemic-proof. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. We might have a way to end this cycle of reinfection and chronic illness. We might have a way to make sure the next big virus never gets off the ground. If we could build a stronger defense right into the food that we all depend on, what's really stopping us?